All right, we're live for the second time today on The Unspoken Truth, and we got one more coming up, 3 lives today. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robert Bruss, and I'm the host of The Unspoken Truth, and I'm joined by my guest today, Dana Jafar. Do I say that correctly? Did I butcher that? Did I get it right?
No, you got it right, Dana. Yes, perfect.
Beautiful. Where's that from?
It's an Iraqi name. My dad's Iraqi, my mum's Colombian, and so Dana Maria is like a fusion of both.
It's a fusion of both, but there's an Aussie accent in there. What the hell?
Oh, yeah,
we're just like we're like
Australia.
mutts from all over the planet here in Australia, aren't we? Well, I'm the same.
It's true. It's true. I grew up in Australia. I definitely feel Aussie at heart too. So it's a good fusion of everything.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, welcome to the show, Dana. It's great to have you here. I'm looking forward to a conversation with you. Before we do any of that and get into any of that, I want to say welcome to the listeners, to the viewers. This is The Unspoken Truth. We like to talk about things that are in the mainstream and pull back the curtain behind what's really going on. And we like to debunk and bust a few myths along the way. It's lots of fun. We're also available as a podcast, so you can pop open Spotify or Apple Podcasts and search for The Unspoken Truth, and you will find us over there as well. And we're also available on Twitter and Rumble as well. And I'd really encourage you to come on over and join me and my team over on Telegram. We've got a whole bunch of content over on Telegram that we can't share here in YouTube or any other mainstream social media because we have to self-censor ourselves for whatever reason. So we share all of the unspoken truth over there on Telegram. So just scroll down and you'll see the link right over there for Telegram. So come and join us over there and check all of that out. On today's show, what we're going to be talking about is some really cool topics that are near and dear to both of our hearts. We're going to talk about personal power, some self-leadership, unwavering confidence, and how to develop that. And we're going to have a really super fun conversation in and around that. I've got some tools I want to share with you based around a lot of the mindset coaching and training that I've done over the years. And I know my guest has got some amazing insights and views on all of that as well. And I can't wait to get into all of that. But before I start and kick off the show, I wanted to give you the opportunity here on the front end to say hello. And have you got any opening remarks for us?
Me? Or your audience? Me. I'm really happy to be here right now. Like, as you know, Rob, I have had a coaching practice for a while, and earlier this year I committed to bringing that online. I realized that as I love coaching, it's my whole heart and soul. I love where we go with my clients. I love what I'm doing. And I also realized, and I think this is something we can get into, the way I was building my practice was really heavily dependent on me being here on the ground. And one of my greatest passions on earth, other than my work, is traveling. And so I felt that every time I'd go overseas, I'd come back and it was like restarting it. And I decided earlier this year I was going to get online. And so being here on this podcast is awesome. I'm really looking forward to share everything that I have. I'm about to launch my first masterclass. It's a good time. It's a good time. And I'm excited to go wherever you want to lead us today.
Awesome. Well, why don't you give us a little bit of background on the coaching? You know, there's so many different flavors of that these days. I know for me personally, I've done a lot of I created a masterclass during COVID called Master Your Mind and Go All In. It's actually free. You can get a free copy of that when you join the community, theunspokenTruth.com.au. If you head over there, you'll get a free copy of it. It's worth a couple $100. So I usually sell that, but it's part of the membership when you go and join our community over there as well. And I've also got another masterclass in there about how to monetize your knowledge. So if you just head on over to theunspokenTruth.com.au, you'll see some more about that. That kind of took me down a path of coaching as well, for the same reasons as what you're talking about, is that you feel like if you're traveling or you're continuously trying to acquire new clients, if you have got a physical model where you're required to be in front of those people all the time, it's not something that's very scalable. So I got into that coaching space after doing a lot of training. I've been an instructor and a trainer in various different things in my life. And I discovered that the Go All In podcast that I created, I kind of painted myself into a corner with that, right? People ask me, hey, Rob, you want to do something? And I'm like, nah, not really. And they're like, come on, man, you're the Go All In guy. I worked with a guy years ago, right?
Oh, no.
I worked with a guy years ago. He wrote a book called Time on Target. He was a fighter pilot. And he was just late. It's just how he was. He was late. And after a while, I was like, listen, man, I don't want to keep bringing up that book and the title of the book that you wrote, but you got to be on freaking time. He's like, I'm not bombing anything. It's all right.
It's true, though. It's true. What you speak really, like, I think that's when the whole piece of embodiment and really making sure that you're living and breathing what you're teaching is really important. Otherwise, for sure, you can get so cornered in. For me, just to backtrack a little bit, I started initially coaching men, actually, and I fell into this coaching space without even knowing that it was a thing, and it just kind of happened, and it was amazing, and I've never looked back. But I started coaching men in specifically, and after a while, these men were telling me, like, Dana, you need to get in front of women and you need to share this with women. And so I started opening that a little bit more, and I loved it. But then, yes, I got to a point where it was beyond like wanting to scale, because I had built a business that was able to offer me the life and the lifestyle that I wanted offline. But it was more about like, I want people to get this work. One of the greatest things that I stand for is like, you deserve to meet yourself at the other side of that goal, that dream, that image you have in your mind where you're like, if I got there and if I was able to live my life this way, everything would be amazing. Like, you deserve to live that. And for me, I realized I want more people to get this work. And really coming online has been a really beautiful and different shift. It's a whole new set of skills and it's a whole new learning game. But it's also been amazing. So that's, and what I coach about or around has always, like, the underlying thread has always been really remembering who you are. And I don't mean remembering who you were when you were a kid. I mean, like, at a very, very deep, almost spiritual level, like remembering your innate capacity to create on this planet. And that then, goes into relationship coaching and mindset coaching and business coaching and all of it. But that has really been my thing. And yeah, just feeling yourself in this life,
I love that. I've spent a lot of time pondering, meditating at the top of the mountain with Andrew Tate or some shit like that, I don't know, and trying to figure out the meaning of life. And where I don't really feel like I'm a deeply spiritual person or something like that, but we all have, we question where we're from, we question why we're here, what are we doing, and you reach a point in your life like, is it all just like a random coincidence that you're actually here? Yes, it's a random coincidence, yes, but now that you're here, you better do something with it, right?
Yeah.
Don't waste it. So whether you're meant to be here and you're reincarnated like in the Hindu religion, like they believe, or some other version of something like that, who cares? You're actually here. You've got to do something with that. And I discovered, after pondering on the mountain with the Wu Dan, as Andrew Tate would say, the meaning of life for me is creation. So whatever that is, right? You want to write a book, you want to paint a picture, you want to create a podcast, you want to create a video. I think the things that give us meaning in our life are when you create something. You might create a giant investment portfolio and be really wealthy. You might fix old cars and you bring them back to life. That's a form of creation. There's so many things that you do, but when you boil down what actually brings satisfaction to you as a human, and when you lean into the things that you love the most, I believe it's all about creation. You can boil it down to that one word, and I love that you brought that up and said that. Is that something you see with your clients?
Yes. And I think I would also go even deeper, because I'm sure you've experienced, there's been things in your life that you might have created or been part of and co-created with someone else even. And then you look back and you're like, this isn't it. I think the creation piece is definitely really important. And it's a first step into really taking ownership and taking responsibility for the fact that you do create your experience of life. And I would go even deeper, where it's like a creation coming from like the deepest, not even like the deepest expression of you in this woo-woo sense, but being able to really get clear as to what it is that you want. Who are you in this life? What do you stand for? A lot of the time, I have clients come and they tell me their whole life story, and they pour their heart and soul out to me, and I'm there and I'm receiving and I'm listening. And then at the end of it, it's like, and all of that is bullshit. All of it, all of it, everything is that. Like,
you're calling it out. You're calling it for BS.
But it is. It's all BS all the time. And what's amazing is like as you said, it's a choice. Like, we get to choose what BS we buy into, and we get to choose what BS we're leading our life through. Because ultimately, like, what is more empowering? What's going to have you show up? What's going to have you feel good? Like, I wake up every day and I am who I am because of my thoughts, my perceptions, who I've created myself to be, what my environment has created myself to be. But if everything was lost tomorrow, I could wake up and be a completely different person, which has you just know like we're constantly in co-creation, and the creation that is really meaningful and gets you to the next level that you really want to be is one in which there's a certain amount of consciousness, there's a certain amount of awareness, there's a certain amount of like honesty, like radical honesty of this isn't actually for me. So yes, and more, if that answers the question.
I love it. I love it. You know, the thing I love most about doing these interviews and podcasting and just chatting with people that I know is, and pressing the record button is you go straight there. You go deep there, right? You know, if most people don't have relationships with friends and family where they can have deep conversations about these things that actually matter. And in some cases, they need a coach to actually have those conversations with, because there's no one around in their life to actually help them with those particular things. I think it's a really, really important thing that you spend some time working on yourself and really understanding yourself at a very deep level. I've been listening to a book. I'm on the third go around of this book. The first go around was like, whoa, that is awesome. The second go around was, well, I didn't hear that the first time. And then I got to the end of it the second time, and I was like, hang on a minute, maybe it seems like I missed like about 30% of it the first go. And I don't know what it was. And I'm at the end of the third go around of this book. It's called The Art of Clear Thinking. And it's written by a fighter pilot. His name is Hazard Lee. And it's a brand new book, 6 years in the making, right? So it's all about how fighter pilots and their thought process and what they do and how you can apply that in your life and whatnot. And I was listening to it yesterday in the gym, and I was on the exercise bike going for it. Like, that's the last thing that I was doing at the end of my workout, right? So the last 15 minutes of an hour workout was on the bike. And I'm right along listening to this, and I was kind of like, I was going for it. My heart rate was about 145, and I'm just maintaining it there for 15 minutes, you know, not killing myself, but not kind of just, you know, paddling along there. Not easily, So, and I looked around in the gym, and I thought to myself, look at all these people in here. All of these people is crowded, right? All these people in here are training their bodies. They're all working really, really hard on their bodies. They want to stay in shape. They know it's good for you. It feels good. At the end of it, you get the endorphins. You just feel good about yourself, right? And, you know, I want to feel good about myself when I take off my shirt in front of my missus. I want to look good for her. I want to be in shape. And, you know, I don't want to have a dad bod, you know, which seems to be encroaching ever closer at my age. You've got to be careful that, you know, if I let go for a couple of weeks, it comes. And that's, you know, I don't have as much testosterone in my body anymore. And so I've got to work much harder than what I did when I was younger. But once you get there and maintain it, it's actually relatively easy to maintain. But I looked around the gym at all these people working out, and they're trying really hard, and some were working hard, some were kind of looking at their phone, some were texting, some were listening to music. Saw a guy tapping his toe. And I'm listening to this book, and I'm thinking, what's that guy listening to? Wonder what that lady's listening to. What's that young fellow listening to? And are they listening to music, or are they feeding their mind with something? And I think in this modern world, we're so subjected to social media, to movies, to streaming television, to everything that's out there. There's so much exposure that's out there that we forget that we actually have to work on ourselves. And everyone in the gym is working really hard physically on themselves. That's awesome. That's really good. That's half of it. But the other half of it is working on your mind. And I don't think that a lot of people do that, because 99% of your day is on autopilot. You don't really have to think about getting out of bed, eating breakfast, getting in the car, going to work, working all day, coming home, saying hello, pat the dog, walk the dog, whatever. You know, you don't really think very much about those things because it's all so automated. So what you do is like so unbelievably important. I'd just love to get your take on that.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So I hear you say that, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, there's so many people, and there's different reasons for it, right? Like, we're talking about people that have our kind of lifestyle and have access to all of these things, because some people are just really on survival mode, and it's different, right? There's so many different kind of possibilities and things happening all at once. But I think for people like us, and we have access to what we have, there is so much that for me, in my mind, there's no excuse. And I've really learned that everyone is kind of on their own path. And this is where my business has really grown, where I realized like not everyone is for me. You know, like the people that are listening to whatever music that is probably like dun, 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 like into the nervous system, and they're just riled up after like a whole day of work and riled up. And it's so much, they're probably not for me, and that's okay. And so for me, it's like, it's less, I think I found a lot of freedom when I stopped trying to get everyone to get onto this bandwagon and get onto this work and find it, and just realize like my people will find me and I will find my people, and really focus and hone in on that. one of the things I really realized as well is I'm not a coach for like the beginner. I like my patience and my capacity to really offer and deliver is less when I'm in front of a beginner, because I feel like my energy is being drained. And I think that's also part of the whole self-awareness piece. It's like, there are so many people out there. I have zero concern about you finding the exact person that is right for you and who you are right for as well. And so it's that, and you'll notice that whether it's someone like really feeding their mind or really feeding their spirit and having something that's grounding to them, and you see it, and like energetically you start to feel, I think you and I are so different, and at the same time we can have conversations for hours because of the kind of work and the kind of awareness we bring to our own life, the intentionality we're bringing to our own life, that we can share ideas and probably disagree on ideas and convince each other of new ideas, and it's like, it's because there's this like foundation. And I think that's what I would say to that is, not everyone is for everyone, and not everyone is ready. And that's okay, because there's so much space and there is people for everyone. Like there really is people for everyone. And so at the same time, I will also add, I think these moments of realization, like, wow, I'm here, I'm at the gym and I'm listening. That's also something I do. Like the gym for me is no longer music. It's I'm listening to a podcast, I'm listening to a masterclass, I'm listening to a recording of a coach. I'm like, I'm in it, and it's amazing because it's a different kind of flow I get into, and I feel like I'm absorbing so much, right?
Do you ever listen to yourself?
I've listened to podcasts I've done, and I'm like, damn.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Really? I'm the opposite. I'm like,
oh, that's so funny.
Man, that was terrible.
Yeah.
Man, I can waffle on. He can talk a lot, that guy.
I've definitely been known to go back and listen to my own stuff sometimes. I mean, because when I'm in it and someone's talking to me about it, I feel really clear-minded, and I can be in the exact same moment as they are, and I don't have the same clear mind as, like, I'm not as objective. And so, yeah, for sure. I mean, so yes, I do, but not often. It's definitely not often, but I don't shy away from it either.
Well, the reason I laugh and poke a little bit of fun at you there is because some people actually hate watching themselves and listening to themselves, even if they're professionals and they do that. There's been many actors that have created a Hollywood movie, and the first time they're seeing the movie is they're sitting in the movie at the premiere. Yeah. They didn't watch anything that they did. And it's like, really? You spent 2 years creating the movie and you didn't really watch any of it? It's like, no, I lived it. What do I have to watch it for? And then they have to sit through it, and then they watch the whole movie during the premiere and watch it 50 times on the tour that they do trying to promote the bloody thing. And they hate that. So I find that interesting as well. I always listen to myself from the perspective of, how can I be more concise? How can I, because you're always your own worst critic. And that can be a very detrimental thing, especially if you've got negative self-talk going on in your head. If something's going wrong in your life for whatever reason, and you have a series of negative events that are happening, and the negative self-talk comes out like, man, you're so stupid. Oh man, that's what, you have this whole series of things that people do to self-sabotage themselves. And you have to have some tools to be able to take back your personal power. So I want to segue to that a little bit, because when I messaged you and said, hey, what do you want to talk about? This was one of the things that you wanted to talk about. And I think this is something that's understated. And when you talk about personal power and what it means to be empowered and things like that, it always seemed in this day and age, I don't know about you, but for me, it feels a little bit politically incorrect. Like, I'm not allowed to say that I'm a powerful creator and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, because it seems like it's all about me and it should all be about somebody else. No, fuck it, like, this drives me crazy, this PC world that we live in. But I think it's an important topic, because unless you've got alignment with yourself, you've got alignment with your goals, with your plans, with your emotions, with your spirituality, and the people that are around you in your relationships, then being able to have your own center that you can come back to all the time is very hard. It's hard to navigate back to that place.
I think it is, if you haven't paid enough attention to it. I think when you have paid enough attention to it,
they're working on their body. Are they working on their mind?
On everything else. So I think when you do pay enough attention to it, it is actually really centered, and it's like your home. It's your home base, and you're aware when you're too far away from home. And so that's a really good thing to come back to. Personal power is something I've given a lot of thought to. I'm not sure I phrased it that way for a long time, but it's something I've given a lot of thought to for a long time. This idea of your life should be about service. I don't believe it should be about service unless you've been able to fully serve yourself first. And you are full, because that's when you see people serve. They're all for the people. And then suddenly they're so run down. Like, that's not true. Like that, there's something empty. For me, it feels empty if you can't first give yourself that. I remember being at university, and this was years ago, and people would be protesting and protesting and protesting. I think universities are notorious for student protests about all the different things, right? Yeah. And I that's when I first started to really realize, like, all of these protests, what a waste of time, really, because the grand scheme of things, there are greater things. These same students that are protesting then go to the student clubs, student houses, and have a beer. Like, what is the actual work? What are you bringing forward? What are the changes that you're actually looking at doing, other than screaming in someone's face, like, do this? Well, what are you doing about it? And that has trickled into everything else in my life. You know, it's like, well, what am I doing about it? Am I just like screaming and barking out different things? Or am I genuinely looking at myself and saying, how am I living and breathing the change that I want to see? How am I living and breathing the way I want my partner to show up in my relationship? How am I showing up? How am I living and breathing, creating a business that is sustainable and brings me life? Like, all of these things, I really, for me, personal power is fundamental. It's the number one thing. I think if everyone, honestly, Rob, if everyone could walk around feeling like they were king shit, the world would be a different place. And not from a place of like, I'm going to prove that this is the case, because then that's not actually personal power, but actually feeling in themselves, I'm a valuable human being. And our sets of power and our sets of skills could be radically different, where you could be more noticed, you could be more popular, you could be all of these things. And what I bring to the table is equally as powerful, even though it's different. And so
it's beautifully said. You know,
that's really important.
What about the practical aspect of it? Like, I think, you know, I'm listening very carefully to what you're saying there, and I just wrote down the word accomplishment. You know, I think it's really important that you recognize within yourself when you feel like that powerful creator, when you have that experience, when something has gone so unbelievably right for you, and you had that win. Man, that was such a win, whatever it was, right? It might be just your football team winning on the weekend, for heaven's sake. It could be something as like trivial as that, or it could be you achieved the goal that you set out to achieve. You finally got that six-pack that you were looking for, and it took you months and months of effort, exercise, dieting, and you finally got there. There's the body. That's what I've been looking for. Now I'm going to maintain it. Now I'm there. I got there. I'm never going back to where it was before. So whenever you felt like that, you felt empowered within yourself, because you have achieved a goal, not somebody else outside of you. But if you've achieved that goal, I think that that's an incredible place to be. But if you can take your mind back there, if you can, you don't have to meditate on these things, but if you can close your eyes and remember what that felt like, remember what that success felt like, remember how good that was for your well-being. If you can take yourself back there consistently, I feel like you'll be drawing that to yourself. You'll be attracting that to yourself as well. If you spend time remembering about how good it felt to achieve those goals, all you'll do is just be attracting good things to yourself. A lot of people feel like they're being propelled by their past. I'm the product, you said it before, right? I wake up every morning and, you know, I can just reinvent myself today. If everything I had today was taken away and it was gone, tomorrow morning when I wake up, I'll just start again. It doesn't matter. You're not being propelled by your past, you're being drawn by your future. And I believe that if you're concentrating on all of that really good stuff that's happened in your life and the feelings to get back there, remember how good it felt to just open up the throttle on that motorbike, man, and just tipping through 110 at second gear, like, man, the front wheel's coming up, man, just the feelings you get from doing things like that. If you can go back there consistently in your life and recreate that in your mind, you don't have to physically do it, then you'll have more of that in your life. And for me, that's kind of what it's all about. And it's about feelings. It's not really about much else than that. It's about how you feel.
Yeah, I think like having that self-recognition piece in your life is really important when you can come back. And I think a lot of people confuse it with needing to be really big goals. It doesn't. Like, knowing that you're someone that shows up every day to the gym, do you know how few people can actually do that? You know, or knowing that you're someone that can diffuse an argument when two people are arguing and have both people calm down, like, that's a superpower. And oftentimes, like, they're much softer in terms of like what people are noticing, but they're still superpowers. So I think that's a really good point. It reminds me of an activity I actually want to start doing with myself, is during the month, like writing down on a postcard or on notes on my phone, things that I've accomplished, things that happened that are really good. They could be the tiniest thing to something really significant, right? And then at the end of the month, looking through the month. And I think having that as a practice is really, could be really powerful, especially for someone who struggles noticing the good thing about themselves. Like, you're just kind of helping yourself along, I think, is a really good one. And I will add, like, I think, yes, being compassionate with yourself is really important. A lot of the times for whatever reason, we're geared towards seeing the bad and seeing the mistakes and seeing how things didn't work out. And we really need to help ourselves in that, right? Like no one can do that work for you. And I think when you start to really, if you're already feeling bad and then you're feeling bad about feeling bad, the judgment on top of the judgment is what really keeps people down. And so bringing awareness to that is important, and recognizing that the awareness itself isn't enough. Awareness is an action. And so having small practices or getting people in your team that really, really support where it is that you want to go and what you want to stand for, I think is important.
Dana, tell me what you think about this important point, right? You kind of raised, you know how hard it is to get to the gym every day and to be consistent with that. I actually do know the people that do that, because when I go to the gym at the same time every day, there's the same people in there.
Yeah.
And it's pretty rare that there's actually other people.
Them.
Yeah, they're the crew that get out of bed at like 5:45 in the morning. They rock up there at 6 in the morning. They work out till 7. They get dressed and they go to work, because that's how it has to fit in their day. There's just no other way to do that. My feeling is that all of this is really awesome, and people tune into a podcast, they watch a video, they listen to this type of content that we create, they see it on Instagram all the time. They get all the similar content. There's nothing new under the sun, right? I mean, there's lots of other people out there like you and me having these conversations, saying these things. And there's lots of people out there that need to hear this message. But the problem that we face, and I'd love to get your take on this as well, is because everything that we do in our lives, because our lives are relatively easy. No one's trying to kill you. There's no animals trying to eat you. And you're not at risk of dying from starvation or of thirst. So life is, I don't really have to think very much about my existence. So therefore, everything is very automated. Sometimes I've been in the car, my daughter needs to be picked up from somewhere and whatever. And, she works down the road. I live in Cronulla. She works down the road in Sylvania, and she hasn't got a license yet. She'll get a license this year. So I got to shuttle her around and be the Uber. That's okay. So I go down there, and the other day, it was a Saturday afternoon. I had to pick her up, and I got there and I was like, you know what? I don't even how did I get here? It was so automated, right? And I got all the green lights or whatever it was. I don't know. I just didn't have to think about how to drive the vehicle to get there to collect her. But the reality is, if you rewound the clock 100 years, it would be a freaking miracle that you could do something like that you could go that far in that amount of time and do that and not like walk anywhere. It's like a miracle. So we're on autopilot because life is so easy. So hearing people like you and me talk about these things, take back your power, look for this, do this, meditate on that, whatever, the tools that we give to people, they hear it and they go, yeah, it sounds all really good and it's all rah-rah. But the reality is they switch off and go straight to the next thing as soon as they finish listening to you and me.
Keep scrolling.
so how does someone stop and actually do something about it?
So again, I think it's comes back to knowing your people. Not everyone will. And that's not okay. Everyone. I think not everyone will. The people that feel like there's a little bit more or there's a lot more in life, because there always is. I think those people need to or get to lean in a bit closer. You said it's different. If it was 100 years ago, we wouldn't have the luxury. If it was now, I just came back from Israel, and there was the missile alarms that went off while I was in Tel Aviv, and you have 15 seconds to find shelter. Like, people are still living a different life. If you're here and you're in a space that allows you to be, allows you to express, allows you to move, allows you to grow, like, there's nothing that's keeping you down unless you yourself allow that, right? And
there's literally no excuse unless you allow that excuse in air raids or not.
Yeah, there's no excuse. And I recognize not everyone is there. Not everyone is there. And I think if people get to the place of like, I hear people talk about it and I'm not doing anything about it, great. Do you want to change it? If it's a yes, then the next step.
But it's so hard, Donna. It's so hard.
That's what I mean. Like, it is and it's not. It is and it's not.
So show me how it's not. What can I do to be not?
You decide. You just choose. No, like, this is the thing, right? Like, and this is why I mentioned I'm not the coach for the person beginning. I'm not. Because I have this isn't a conversation that I would entertain. It's like, if you're coming into my world, you are ready for the next level. And there are people that would be so good at entertaining that kind of conversation of like, well, yes, it's hard. And it's almost like I don't convince. I realize, like, I cannot convince. If I convince, I'm very good at persuading, and I'm very good at convincing and having the person see reality. But then I feel so drained. So it's like,
Yeah,
that's not my monkey, not my circus, you know?
yeah, you shouldn't have to be trying to convince anybody of anything. What you're doing is
Well,
holding a mirror
that's the
up to
thing.
them.
And so it's like, I think you and I, we're doing these conversations, and we're having people see a possibility and a potential experience of their life that they might not be experiencing if they don't feel like they've got power and choice over what they're living, right? So you get to access like, wow, there's a different way. And it's not here to be like, well, who wants to come along? Because we're going to hold your hand and make sure you get there. It's like, no, honestly, it sounds really harsh, but that's the thing that makes the coach redundant. Like for me, if you're a good coach, you become redundant in your clients' lives. If you're a good coach, you can have the same clients for a long period of time. And I love working with people for a long period of time, but it's a radically different energy when they come in and they're like, this is the thing that I'm in and I want out. And so you as a coach help lead that and mentor them through that. But then at the end of it, they're like, holy shit, I found myself again. And I realized I don't need this anymore. And I choose to continue because it's awesome to have someone on my team. But that energetically, it's so different to feeling like someone needs to be signing up. For me, that's not an energy I want. Like I need you. And also for the client, like then you're not really doing your work. Does that make sense? So it's like, I think it comes down to, again, it's like the listener, the viewer, the person, like it's their choice. It's always their choice. And there are tools and there are people available if they feel in their body like they are ready to take the next step. If they feel in their body that they're ready to learn deeper about themselves. Like no one is exempt from this. It is available to everyone. And not everyone does it. And that's also okay.
So my feeling is that it's available to everybody, but you must take responsibility for yourself.
Everyone needs to take responsibility for themselves. Go out and find the people.
And that's the choice that you're talking about. People can choose to take responsibility for themselves, or they can choose to continue to do the same things where they're at. You know, I'm a big believer of the 1% rule. And what I mean by that is you can't be 1% better every single day on every single aspect of your life. But what you can do is to identify what you want to improve upon, whatever that might be. I want to be a better speaker, a better podcaster, a better presenter. I want to be a better video editor. I want to be faster, more efficient. I want to do those things. So what is it that I need to do to actually get there? And, you know, setting goals like that are relatively simple. They're achievable and they're attainable. And when you get to those points, you're like, okay, cool. Now I've acquired these skills. I've got these skills. It doesn't matter how long it took me to get there or what was required to get there, but I got there. So I'm a believer of trying to get better by 1% every single day in very specific things, because I can't be 1% better as a dad today. Well, I didn't really engage with my kid because my kid was gone all day. She's at TAFE all day, and then she goes out with her mates in the afternoon, comes home, has already had dinner because she ate out, has a shower and goes to bed. So I didn't get an opportunity to be 1% better as a dad today. But when I engage with her, I try to be, you know, more thoughtful in the way that I communicate with her, be more available for her because she's a young teenage girl and she needs like guidance and needs the right people around her, those types of things, right? So it's not 1% over everything every day. People make these big giant blanket statements, but if you can be 1% better in something and choose something and take responsibility for yourself with that something, that gives you a way to actually start moving forward and a way to get out of the autonomous mode that you're in. You're operating on autopilot every single day. The way to get out of autopilot is to come back and say, okay, what is it that I'm trying to improve? I'm trying to be a better video editor. All right, that means I need to sit here and watch an hour and a half worth of DaVinci Resolve videos on how to actually color grade properly. And now I'm going to be the best color grade person that ever existed. And I've made that pledge to myself. And in the next 10 days, I'm going to be a ninja at that. So these are very small, achievable goals, but people just don't do that.
Yeah. I think, I think a lot of the time we speak about how-tos and even the whys, and we are led by that. I want to become a good video editor, so I'm going to learn the how-to, and this is why I want to have the best, all of it, right? Really, like underneath all of that, what's driving you is the being that you're choosing to be. Like, who is, in this case, like, who are you being that has you show up in the way that you care about, the way your color gradients look on the videos, the way you're editing the videos. Like, it's beyond what's being done and how it's being done. And I think actually that's a lot of the time we get stuck on the how-to. I have a lot of people ask me like, well, how do I do this? And how do I do that? And how do I start this? It's not about that. who are you being when you're asking these questions? Are you being someone that feels like until you have the answers from someone else, you can start? Who are you being when you think about the business you want to start? Are you thinking about the money you're going to make? Because let me tell you, that won't take you very far at all. As soon as it gets hard, you're like, this is too hard. I want to find the other thing that's going to get me the money. Do you know, like it's
the
not
shiny thing
it's
over there.
never,
Can you
yeah.
see it? I can see it over
Yeah,
there.
yeah. Like I'll drop it. So the how to and the why, which the why is really important. What's driving you, but beyond that, the being, like who are you being? What is it that you care about that has you show up in the way that you are going to invest the 10 hours to make sure that your color gradient is perfect? You know, who are you being to make sure that people, it's all of it. So I would say that even beyond all of that, like the 1% thing is really important, but even the 1% mentality is driven by who you're being for yourself in your life.
Do you know who you're being?
For me, one of the greatest things is like I am fully led by making sure that wherever I am in my life, I feel at home. You know, wherever I am in the world, I feel at home. That when I walk into a room, I feel and I be someone that belongs in that room. And that
Air
has
raid
been
sirens and all?
transformative. Yeah, sirens and all of it, no matter
Really?
where. Yeah, that for me has been like really important, that I walk into a space and it's like this space is me and I am this space. Like the energy that comes with that is really important. Who I be in the world is someone that like I don't fluctuate based on who I'm with. This
You
is
know,
it.
I've never ever felt like I'm home ever, no matter where I've been.
Really?
And I've traveled the world, right? I traveled the world in the military, lying on the ground, like under the stars in the pouring rain, and
Wow.
every aspect of like life that you could experience like that, like a nomadic lifestyle I've experienced. You know, when I was in the Navy, you know, traveling the oceans and being in places, and I've lived in so many different places as well, so many different houses, apartments, and you know, on barracks and bases and
Yeah.
just different places. And whenever I live somewhere, like even this apartment that we live in now, it's just a rental because we were going to move to Queensland. But then my daughter said she wanted to go to TAFE. So that plan went out the window for the next 18 months. And this is sort of like a temporary place, but it's really nice. It's like, it's homely. It feels nice. It has great energy.
Yeah.
It's like bright and airy. It's like when I look out the
Good
window, I'm like,
location, that's for sure.
yeah, and I'm looking in the trees and the birds and the nature and stuff. It's just like beautiful, right? It's a really nice spot. It doesn't feel like home. Like
For me,
and
like when I say to feel at home, it's like within myself.
how do you
Does
mean?
that make sense? As in like this is something that I feel my dad actually really instilled in us, where we can be with my sisters and I, you can put us anywhere in the world and we're good. We won't just survive, like we will fully thrive. And it's something that I'm forever grateful for my dad. But that energy, that way of being, that upbringing has really led me to feel like when I walk into a room, it's like I'm here for this and people are here for me energetically. Even if I don't have anything to do with the event, like energetically, I feel at home in my body, and the work that I do every single day is to feel at home within me. That everything that I'm saying, everything that I'm doing, everything I'm requesting, everything I'm demanding, whatever it is, it's coming from a place of like, this is what's needed for me. And it goes back to, it takes us full circle to the beginning of the conversation, right? Where I really think in order for you to show up as everything that you are in this world, like you need to know who you are and what you're here for, or at least be guided by something. Like I don't know what I'm here for yet, but I'm so curious to find out and be pulled in that direction all the time. And you said it beautifully, you know, being in life from a space of I'm being pulled by the future versus I'm being dragged by the past.
Yeah.
So it's all of that. But that for me, like who I be in the world is someone that if I'm speaking about something, if I'm saying something, I can fully back something.
I love it. I think maybe part of the reason for me not really feeling like home was there's a bit of brainwashing in the military, right? Because you don't know where you're going to be from one day to the next sometimes.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And I can remember a couple of times in the army just being on patrol overseas on operations and, okay, where are we going? Well, we're going on like a 4-day patrol. Where? Here on the map. And you look at the map and you go, whatever, man, you know. And I'm the scout. I'm the guy in the front of the patrol. The boss goes, all right, we're going here. And I like, take your compass bearing, look that way. Okay, walk that way, make sure there's no bad guys. And patrolling along, you get to the end of the day, you've been like walking all day, like in a Forrest Gump movie or some stupid shit like that, right? And the boss is like, all right, okay, we're going to park up here. Let's set up a perimeter here. Let's get ready. And it gets dark at night time in the jungle, right? So you've got to get ready. You got to, all sorts of things you do to prepare and then lie down on the ground and go to sleep. Next day, get up, walk along a little bit more, patrol a little bit more. Okay, where are we going to go? I remember one particular night we went to a, it was in Timor. We went to a place to park up for the night. And then it wasn't a very tactical position because there were these really quite big hills and mountains that were around us. And the boss was like looking around going, man, we're losing the light. What are we going to do? And he said, I think what we're going to do is go up there, just walk up the hill a little bit. And it was pretty accessible. It was like, you're not climbing a mountain or anything. It's pretty steep. We walked up to the top of this hill and he said, now we can look down at the track that's in front of us that we were on. So if there's any enemy that come along, we've got the high ground, and we could engage with them. And no one's really going to attack us from the top because it was a mountain. And so here we are in the tropics, right, in East Timor, and we walked up the hill. It must have been, I don't know, maybe 300 meters. It's not very high, right? So the top of this hill, and so it sort of went up like that, and it plateaued a bit, and then it went up, and we set up a perimeter. But at nighttime in the tropics, what you don't realize is that all the cold air up in the atmosphere, so it's a hot day, right? Hot, humid day, all the hot air is rising. And at nighttime, when the sun goes away, all the cold air comes down. And you have what's called on the side of a mountain, a katabatic wind. And the katabatic wind comes down at probably 50 or 60 kilometers an hour from high up in the atmosphere where it's freezing. It's like minus 15 degrees up there and the freezing cold air is coming down. So we're patrolling along in our cams, no cold weather gear, no wet weather gear, no nothing. And then all of a sudden at like 11 o'clock at night, the cold, like, what the hell, what's going on, man? Like, it's so, I'm lying on the ground going, and I see some dudes like pulling their space blanket out of the medical kit, right? And they've got these silver space blankets over, and I'm like looking at my night vision, seeing this big bright silver thing there, and then it makes all the noise, and then the wind is just like a freight train coming down. I don't think anyone slept that night. And the boss is like, in the morning, he's like, right, everybody, let's pack up and go. And everyone's dragging their sorry ass like.
Lesson learned, that's for sure. And good story to then be told.
Didn't feel like home.
No, but it didn't feel like home externally. There's an argument to be made, I think, for like you being in that space and be like, hey, this is where I am. Now what?
Well, you just got to deal with it, right?
You got to deal with it. You got to do.
Yeah. That's the really hard thing. You know, that's a nice little segue to talk about resilience and building unshakable confidence, because that was something you wanted to talk about as well. You know, in that scenario, the resilience comes from having no other choice. You just have to kind of grind your teeth and grin and bear it. There's nothing that you can do. In the army, there's a saying that you have. You know, someone's always doing it worse than you. Like if you're feeling like, man, this is like the worst ever, all you have to do is like lift up your head and look over there, and someone's doing it way worse than you. Someone's like got the thing over their head and they're like shaking with hypothermia or something like that. It's happened a lot to me as well. You know, but I think, in modern society that we live in the real world that we live in, it's very rare that you put in those circumstances, you know, by choice or, you know, by default, by association. So you have to have some tools to actually understand how to build resilience for yourself. And I think it's really important that you know within yourself, know thyself, what helps you to build resilience and how to build confidence. Talk to us about that a little bit.
I would say people need to find silence first and foremost. There's a lot of noise. Even someone who comes from a different podcast and then listens to this and then goes from this one to something else, like, what are you actually taking and what are you actually implementing? Ultimately, it comes down to, again, like, how are you living your life and who are you being when you live that? So to find some silence, I think, is really, really, really important. And in that silence, discover what you just said, Rob. Discover what works for you, what tools work for you. I could give you so many things that have worked for me in my own confidence. And there are people that write to me years later, and it's like, I still think about this every day and it's changed my life. And the exact same thing I've told someone else, and it's just like gone straight over their head. Like, no, I don't understand it. So again, like finding silence and understanding what in my life has moved me so far. What have I heard or where have I been that has moved something inside of me? I feel like when you're led by that internal feeling, not the transitory emotions of like joy and sadness and, you know, whatever it is where we can be so moved by that. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about like something where you've been somewhere and it's like, it almost takes your breath away in either a very, very obvious or very, very subtle way. And thinking about what are those things that have moved me and moving in the direction of that more and finding like what is something that really works. For me, someone could tell me all day about how they're confident and like chasing your goals and going to the gym and like blah, 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 like really this fighter energy or this like go energy. That doesn't move me at all, you know? And so that has also been really helpful. And that's what I will say, like, allow yourself to know yourself. And in that space, move towards the things that move you, not towards the things you think should move you, because they can be two different things.
I love it. That's really, really fantastic advice. Folks, we're going to take a little break, and I just want to remind the listeners and viewers that today's show is brought to you by you. In this crazy, uncertain world, we all need a way to protect and insulate ourselves from the outside forces that we simply cannot control. I'm a news junkie, and after a lifetime of constantly immersing myself in the darkness and the despair that engulfs the world, the path to shield myself and my family has become crystal clear. I want to invite you to come and join me in the Unspoken Truth community, where I'll show you how I protect my family from this crazy world. You'll get access to 3 masterclasses worth over $1,000, as well as our live events, training, and community of truthers just like you. Come on over to the unspokentruth.com.au and join us for just 50 cents a day. What are you waiting for? Get started now at the unspokentruth.com.au. Well, I want to just pull on that thread of building some confidence and give the listeners and the viewers some more practical skills. So you've given your little take on it. I want to kind of build on what you're saying as well from a practical perspective. Over the years, I've had a lot of different roles, if you like, a lot of different jobs, and tried to do a lot of different things that require superhuman levels of confidence. So one really big one that I could say is parachuting, right? So I've done a lot of parachuting in my life, and it takes a huge amount of confidence to get there. But I can't say the word confidence without also saying the word competence. So you must, in order for you to be confident about something, you need to be competent to be able to execute on that thing. So if you're going to go skydiving or parachuting or something, doing some physical activity, you better bloody well be competent in doing that thing. If you're going to ride a motorcycle, so I'm talking about physical things here that you do. So if I hand over to you my GSXR 1000 that's made to go on a racetrack, and you're on your L's, only learning to ride a motorbike, you're not going to be able to do it, because you won't be confident to get on my big bike that's 1,000 cc's, because you're not competent to handle the machine. And it takes a lot of time and training and effort to be able to get on a big bike and be able to handle something like that, because it's dangerous, because you kill yourself by the time you're at the end of the street if you're not careful, right? And that's the reason that people don't do it, is because they know they're not competent to get on that big thing, because I know that could bite me like a lion. You've got to be really, really careful of that. So another thing that I've done a bit of in my life is aerobatics. So as a pilot, I've flown aerobatics a lot. And one of the very first things that they teach you to do when you're learning aerobatics is they teach you to chair fly everything. So you get to chair fly whatever it is that you're working on in your life. And so here's a tool I want to give to you, ladies and gentlemen, and get your thoughts on it as well, Dana, is that when you chair fly something, you get the opportunity to make the mistakes over and over and over and over again. So I'll give you an example. If you're going to learn to fly a loop, so you'll be up at altitude, and usually when you're learning to fly, you're flying a fairly underpowered aeroplane. You can't just point it up like a fighter jet and it's going to climb. You need to use momentum and inertia to actually do it, right? So you'll be at 6,000 or 7,000 feet, and you'll point the nose down and accelerate the aeroplane to 160, 170 knots, and then you'll pull back on the controls to do the loop. And as you're pulling back onto the controls, you'll feel the G coming on, and as the G is coming on, depends if you're flying a yoke or a stick, as you're pulling your body, the weight of your body has been pressed into the seat. And if you're not used to those things, it can be kind of like disconcerting. But the instructor will demonstrate to you exactly what's happened, then he'll give you a couple of goes at it, then he'll show you how to fix the problems you made, you'll keep practicing. And when you go out and learn to do a loop, you might do like 20 loops in a session, right?
Well, even you talking about it gives me, like,
you're all looped
flying
out.
is not my thing, and I'm just like, oh my God, that sounds so scary. So scary.
So when you come out of that, you'll go to a debriefing, right? And the instructor will debrief you on every aspect of what you've done. And he will usually write down, hey, your entry speeds here were bang on for that one, or you were off by about 2 knots. Before you pull, make sure you're already at 160 knots, not 158, exactly 160, and don't pull at 161 either. When it hits 160 knots, that's when I want you to pull. And as you're pulling, I want you to look at the G meter and make sure it's at 3.5 or 4 Gs. I don't want you to pull at 2 Gs, I want you to pull at 3 Gs. So there's these little things. That's what piloting a plane is, right? You're looking for those speeds and you're flying those numbers.
That's so much. Yeah.
Well, what you can do. So,
For
right,
me,
it sounds like a lot, right? But when you chair fly something, so I understand now. Okay, cool. I'm gonna take off from the airport. I'm gonna go to the training area. I'm gonna get up to 5,000 feet. I'm gonna do my hassle checks first. I'm ready to go. Then I'm say, "You ready to go, mate?" Yeah, I'm good. Okay, now I'll put the airplane in a dive, and then there's 160 knots. There's the 3G pull. Here I come. Airplane's coming up to the top of the loop. There we are at 0Gs. We're at the top of the loop. There's a 0G there. Pull back. Let the control pressures go as you're coming down the other side of the loop. And what I'm looking for is to hit the wake of what I just went in. So I did a loop and I fly back through my wake. Aerobatics is the ultimate pursuit of perfection, right? It's very, very hard to fly back through your wake and draw an exact circle in the sky. It's almost impossible, right? But if you can do that, it's something where the aeroplane flies through it and you kind of buffets you a little bit like that. But I think I must have flown about 10,000 loops with my eyes closed, because I've been able to chair fly those loops and be able to sit there and go, okay, what does it feel like when I'm sitting in the aeroplane? I've got my hands on the controls, I've got one hand on the throttle, I do my hassle check, I go through the check, I look down, okay, ready to go, push the throttle forward, push the nose forward, get a bit of 0G as I come and push the nose forward. There's 160 knots. Here we go, a little bit of G. Hold my breath a little bit, flex my stomach, flex my leg muscles so the G doesn't affect me too much. It doesn't really do that much at that level, but still do it anyway. Do it, pull, and then keep doing that. You can chair fly anything. Doesn't matter if you're learning to do a loop, a barrel roll, you're learning to do a stall turn, a wing over. It doesn't matter what maneuver you're learning to fly in an aeroplane. You can fly circuits with your eyes closed. Brakes, undercarriage, mixture, fuel pump, hatches, harnesses. There's a 45 degrees. Where's my airspeed? Where's that? Where's the final? Where's the check? Where's the lookout? Sit up, take a breath. There's 1,000 checks that you go through when you're flying an aeroplane, right? And you're doing that every single time. And you might fly an hour of circuits where you're just doing takeoffs and landings for an entire hour. And you're doing that constantly in your mind for an hour when you're physically doing it. And if you feel your mind wandering a little bit, do I need to buy a loaf of bread on the way home? Do I need milk? Do I need what's for dinner?
Yeah, no.
If your mind's wandering while you're doing something like that, you're at risk of an accident. So to be present-minded in that scenario, aviation has a way of focusing all of your attention into one thing. But
what
there's
a
a
skill
saying
to
in
have,
aviation.
Rob. That sounds like a great skill. I want to add something to what you said, because I agree the competence piece is yes, absolutely. One of the greatest things I ever heard about confidence from one of my coaches was that, he told me, Dana, confidence is a result, not a requirement.
Exactly.
And it's a result of you showing up and doing the thing and checking and being present and chair flying and the whole thing. It's a result, not a requirement. I think that's one of the greatest misconceptions people have. That's one of the greatest unspoken truths people have about what confidence is. It's a result requirement.
I've done in the last year or so, I've been teaching a lot of people to get their drone license. So if you want to take a drone out and fly it commercially for a job, you need to have a license. And so I was an instructor teaching people to do that. And I used to say that, look, I can teach you to fly a drone in the next 15 minutes. It's simple: up, down, left, right, forwards, backwards. Don't be stupid. Don't fly it yourself. Don't fly it at anyone else. That's it. The rules are fairly limited. But what I would look for, to be able to sign somebody off would be not that they're competent. It's the actual opposite. It's that they're confident. Normally, you're going the other way around, where competency builds the confidence, but because the competency level for flying a drone is so unbelievably low, what I'm looking for is for you to make confident decisions about when stuff goes wrong and about the rules and the regulations, because there's a lot of rules and regulations when it comes to that type of thing. So it's really interesting. That's the kind of reverse. It was the paradox of those
like
things.
Like the chicken or the egg, then, it seems.
It was, right? So normally, in order for you to be confident, you'll be competent in something. But flying a drone is so simple. You could be competent in 10 minutes, but are you confident?
Yeah.
No. Most people,
and the
when they're just
competency
starting
comes
out,
in that pace. The competency is in the competence of you being able to do the thing.
There it is. And all the things that I've done in my life, there's been nothing where that has been flipped, inverted, where the confidence comes. That's what the competency is first, and then there's the confidence. Normally, it's the other way around. It's the paradox of that particular skill set, which is really interesting.
That's
I also
interesting.
believe that one of the tell me what you think here is one of the things that goes wrong for people in their life and in their day is when things don't go right for them, life can unravel for people really quickly if you're not careful. When stuff goes wrong at work, if something's gone wrong in an investment or something's gone wrong in a relationship, if you allow things to unravel, then you can get rattled, and that can snowball to a point where you're crying in a fetal position in the corner because life is just dealing you a hard blow. We've all been there, right?
Yeah, I think it happens more often than not, and there's something about the human mind as well that kind of loves that pain. It's kind of like it sucks, and I feel really comfortable here because it's very predictable. One of the first things I ever learned is that the brain doesn't exist to make you happy. The brain isn't there to make you feel joyous and fulfilled. The brain is there to make sure you survive, and survivability to the brain is making sure that your life is set up in a predictable way, which is why people find it really difficult to get out of loops. If they tend to be anxious, or they tend to be a little bit more depressed, or they tend to be, anger driven, or they tend to be, it's like these loops that can be so uncomfortable, and someone could tell me I want out, and their brain keeps going into those loops because it's predictable. And even though it's uncomfortable, they feel safe there. So that's the first thing, I just lost my train of thought, Rob. What did you ask before this?
I wanted to add there, that you said that's the first thing. So I teach a tool and I use a tool. I've actually, I think I might even have a slide here from another podcast that I did. Yeah, I do. Yeah. So here's a tool that I teach people called your release routine. So you use this to stay in control and to stay totally focused. So just a traffic light system, right? So red light, amber light or yellow light, and green light. So very simple to say, if you're in a red light scenario, it means you've lost control and you're out of control. If you're in a green light scenario, you're completely in control, you're confident, and you're all good. And if you're in a yellow light, you were in control, and if you keep going, you're going to lose control of whatever it is that you're talking about, right? So just think about a tennis player. So these analogies and that system works really good for athletes, right? So it's about mental performance and about being at the top of your game at all times. When no plan survives first contact with the enemy. And it doesn't matter if it's an enemy tennis player, it's a boxer in the ring, or it's some guy shooting at you on a two-way firing range. The same thing is true, right? So think about the tennis player that smacks the ball, and he's hitting the ball really well, and the other person's hitting it back at him really well, and he loses the point, and he's getting frustrated, and he throws his racket, and he's getting upset. Part of the reason that they're doing that, part of the problem is that they've lost control because the plan is not going according to what they said it would be. So I've spent all the time watching videos of my opponent. I know how they're going to play. When I hit a forehand here, he's going to hit a backhand back at me like that. So this is the plan that I've got. And if that person keeps doing something that's outside the scope of your plan, it's going to blow up your plan, and people get frustrated and they're out of control. So when you see athletes that are really, really good at what it is that they do, they allow that to happen, something goes wrong for them, and then they have a release routine. What they do is they have the ability to actually, go, and the best players in the world do this. They understand that they don't win every point, but they also recognize that they don't have to win every point. All I have to do is win 51% of the points and I'll win the match or the game or whatever it is that they're playing, right? So they also understand that when things don't go their way and it hasn't worked the way that they want, the best athletes in the world have the ability to reset themselves as if they've just first walked out there. So they let go of that so it doesn't unravel everything that you do. You've got to be super careful, because in some points in your life, you'll be faced with controlling a machine, whether that's a car, a truck, a boat, a plane, a helicopter, a motorcycle, whatever it is, you're controlling a machine of some description. If something goes wrong for you, you can't let that something unravel everything. Think about your behavior in traffic. Some idiot cuts you off. I feel like I want to beep the horn, or there's a bit of road rage inside. We all feel that, right? That all of us go through, especially if you live in Sydney, right? You go through that 4 times a minute, depending on where you live. It's like horrendous. But if you allow that person who just cut you off or wasn't watching what they were doing, if you allow that to actually fester within yourself, you understand that you're not going to have a good day. So you let that go really quickly, and then you just keep going, oh, yeah, dickhead, whatever, beep the horn, and then you just keep moving. So you have a release routine when you've got road rage in the traffic. But for some reason, people don't have a release routine for themselves in their life, and they allow negative things to go wrong, which unravels everything. Have you ever been in an argument with your partner and you're arguing about something, and then your partner brings up something not related to the argument that you're having? What? What's that got to do with anything? Why are you bringing that up now? We're not arguing about that. You want to argue about that, do you? Let's get on with it then. It doesn't make any sense, right? And that's because what has happened to that person is the argument that they're in is causing them to unravel, and everything's unraveling for them. So I think it's really important that you have a way to release all of that negative energy.
It is. And you just reminded me of where my train of thought was. We were talking about when people are in dips, they kind of go into their dip even more. And that's a really big problem. And I have seen that time and time again. And I think the best thing to do, like you said, in that space is, first of all, allow yourself to be in the dip. I don't think many people talk about like how important it is to just like be in the dip, allow yourself to experience it, get in, like don't run away from it, and use it as a way to like understand yourself more as well, or get the help you need to be able to bring light to a situation and have you understand and use these feelings of like, because a lot of the time, like in the dip, I talk a lot about heartbreak and how heartbreak is something that is one of the most powerful things I feel a human being can go through. When you're in a space of heartbreak, it is so unbelievably difficult. And then when you're out of it, you realize how much you actually learned, and you access parts of you that you wouldn't usually access anywhere else in your life at any other time. And those shadows or that darkness and that sadness can bring up so much about who you are and what you're meant for in this world. Like it really can. So there's power in those spaces, but I do think someone needs to be in the space to be able to access that, or at least have people in their team to be able to help them access those things when they're in the dip. And also, I will say, if you're in the dip and you're alone, acknowledge that also that dip you're in is BS. What we mentioned before. I was speaking to a friend who's going through a really dark time, and I was there for her, holding her, being in that space with her, and then also letting her know it's okay. It's okay. It's okay if you feel really shitty. It's okay if you feel lost. It's okay if you don't feel like you. It's okay. And then suddenly, like, because again, it's a judgment of where you're at that makes it worse. If you can acknowledge like it's okay, and holy shit, I'm human and I'm going through a really hard time, and that is okay. Suddenly you lift a burden off yourself and just allow it to be. And when you don't have that burden of like bad on top of bad, suddenly it's like bad, and I recognize you'll get better. So there's that, being in a dip isn't the worst thing in the world. Staying in the dip because you can't access the fact that it's okay to be there, I think is worse than the dip itself.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. Well, Dinah, it's been an absolute pleasure to host you here on the show for an hour or so. No doubt there's another dozen of these conversations that we can have, and I'm looking forward to having you back if you'd be so inclined to come on back and do some more with me. Would you be up for that?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Rob. It's always really great. I love having these conversations and accessing what we get to access in these kinds of forums. So it's been fantastic, and I hope everyone listening or watching has really enjoyed it.
Yeah, awesome. Excuse me, if people want to connect with you, Donna, what would be the best way to do that? Would that be via Facey and Instagram?
Probably Instagram, even more than Facebook, to be honest, but for sure you can connect with me on both. Instagram is probably the place at Dana Maria Jafar, and everything's on there. It's an exciting time. It's really, really fun. So thank you so much again, Rob.
My absolute pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, just scroll down and have a check us in the show notes. And right there already are the links to connect with Dana in her Facey and her Insta. Make sure you click that and head on over there. Thank you so much for joining us on The Unspoken Truth for the second time today. We got one more live coming up in about an hour or so. Don't forget to tune into the podcast as well. And as you're scrolling down there, connecting with Dana and following her on Instagram, make sure you come on over to Telegram as well. You'll get some unspoken truth over there, and there's lots of great content. Just be careful when you come over there. I just didn't say that before. There's a bit of R-rated content in there about the war, and some R-rated stuff, not naughty pornography type R-rated stuff, but other unspoken truths that will give you a different perspective on this crazy world that we live in. So just be careful what you click on in there, and there's you've been forewarned about what's going on. But come on over to Telegram and see us there. And thank you so much for joining us here on the show. Have you got any closing remarks there for us? Have you got any final thoughts that you want to share with the audience?
I just hope that everyone watching gets to access a deep part of themselves that has them feel like they've got what it takes to live the life that they dream of. I really do.
Beautifully said. A nice way to round it out. All right, let's get out of here. Bye for now, folks.
Thanks, Rob.